My real concern and disappointment is the way in which it is happening. I believe there's other options to achieve the same results for protecting the habitat as well as protecting property rights.
And what are those options? We'll discuss them with Assemblyman Pierce here on Radio Realty. You're listening to Radio Realty. I'm Christopher Story, along with David Webb, who's engineering this broadcast back up at the mothership of KPEN 102 FM. In the studio with me is Assemblyman Charley Pierce. We're talking about anadromous streams ordinances, and my beef with it from the beginning has been there wasn't written notification given to the private property owners. They, in fact, Charlie, one great example, I'll just give this to you. A friend of mine called me up after I discussed this on air, and he said, well, I got one of those packets, but it doesn't affect me because I own on Caribou Lake, and this says on the river. No, it affected him.
It did. There was a catalog in there that identified those water bodies that were included in the ordinance.
And that's one of the aspects of this that I also took exception to, and that's that I don't believe, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe that all of the Assembly that voted for 2011-12 understood lakes were inclusive in that. I think there was some confusion there.
That's correct, there was.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't recall any discussions during committee or at any public hearing where lakes were specifically discussed by administration and or any of the assembly members.
Yeah. And I'd made contact with one of your peers, in fact, to just inquire as to why there wasn't notification given. And Assemblyman Smith actually was just taken aback, like, what do we just followed the law. And then, of course, subsequent to that, then the law was changed, as you had referenced to earlier.
We strengthened the law and made it tighter.
I mean, I was shocked because you can't split a lot in half. You can't conjoin two lots without giving written notification to people within a certain circumference.
That's surprising, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, while Charlie and I are sitting here conversing, I'm drinking some Blackwater Bend Espresso, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to go to the Mermaid Cafe for free. If you haven't tried, by the way, Charlie, while you're in town, you've got to go to the Mermaid Cafe. You can take me there. Grab the N-Star card. Let's go down there, go to lunch. I want to send one of you listening to lunch for free as well. You've got great Thai dishes, pizza, salads. It's all delicious. Lunch or dinner, Mermaid Cafe in Old Town Homer. Here's your question. In a recent Gallup poll, 73% said now is a good time to buy a home. That compares to 2007. How? What percentage of you thought in 2007 it was a good time to buy a home? A, 52%, B, 58%, or C, 53%. A, B, C, that's 52, 58, or 53% of you. You're close, Charlie. He's giving me hand signals. You're close, but you're not quite there. I've actually got it highlighted so I can share that with you. So anyway, the number has changed. Dramatically, actually, so it's a much better number right now. The number that you can text me your name and answer, 299-7653, 299-7653. A moment ago, Charlie, I got a text from my father, Norm Story. He said to say hello to you. He's listening, so a little shout-out there to Norman. Well, let's talk a little bit about what is before the borough. This has been taking a lot of your time, a lot of your meetings, a lot of our energies and emotions in the borough has been focused on this ordinance. Is there something else that is on the horizon that we should know about? Maybe it's just under the waters brewing?
Not that I know of. They haven't spoke to me about it. I'm probably going to be the last to know
That's right.
if there is anything out there brewing.
So, well, let's talk about that because you get heated in these meetings. It's maybe heat is the wrong word. I think you're very blunt, you're direct, you're pointed, and I appreciate that. It's refreshing. Is there, do you all just shake hands and slap backs when the meeting's over and go about your business?
I don't think that I was elected to go in there to go along to get along. I've always said that. Yeah. I'm comfortable that I can agree to disagree. I think my constituents appreciate that I'm willing to go in there and voice some of their concerns and bring their frustrations to the table. But if you look at the numbers that are there, the tide has swung from a more conservative point of view to a more liberal, anything kind of goes agenda. Mm-hmm. And at the cost of all of us sharing in it equally. It's let's all share in this. It makes sense. It feels good. It's right. It's the good thing to do. And I don't necessarily prescribe to that methodology. And so I would say that I have some real strong philosophical differences with the majority of the votes that are there.
Let's talk about you're in Homer today. We're broadcasting around the peninsula and say hello to all of you. But let's talk specifically Homer real quick. We've got a new transfer facility for the baler up at our dump, basically. We're going to be exporting, and I've never understood this, and I've not to date gotten a satisfactory explanation. Why are we in Homer going to the exporting business of our trash?
Well, if you look at the site you have, it has limited capacity, and it was determined that the capacity that was there was used. And
by site, you don't mean the facility; you mean the actual land.
The landfill itself.
We've used it up.
The codes and regulations that we are following today force us to do some things that are expensive. And if you look in the area here and try to find an additional site, you would think, well, let's just find another local site. Mm-hmm. Well, then you got to develop it, you got to build it, you got to meet it, you got to meet a higher standard, you got to build it to a higher standard. So they looked at all of those economic cost causers and made the determination that it was in the next 10 years. If you look at within the next 10 years, we're going to make some decisions in Soldot and the Kenai area as well, but it made sense to take what you are creating here and generating in the way of trash and move it to the facility where we have a current coded facility or viable facility where we can place the trash.
We've got a baling facility here. It was making bales, but we're out of land. Why not acquire a piece of land to just truck those bales to more locally?
Well, again, you got to develop that site. You got to have liners. You've got to have leachate collection devices.
Okay.
We
can't just shove it off onto somebody's lot. Come on, Charlie.
It's the third highest cost in the borough is dealing with your trash.
All right. Well, let me ask you this then, and I want to move on to one other subject after this. I predict there's going to be very short order we're going to be paying to deliver to our landfill.
I don't know.
Okay. Why are we as a borough, and I hate to do this rapid fire, but I know you've got to go, why are we holding $100 million in reserves?
That's a good question. There are a number of folks in the financial that have the financial responsibilities at the borough that believe that you need to have a certain amount of reserves to take care of the business. 1 year's worth of reserves to take care of, or 1 year's plus. Craig Chapman is our finance director, and I have a lot of confidence in his judgment, and his opinion is at the borough level, we need to maintain that $20 to $23 million threshold. The school district has $20 million. We have some money invested in some savings. You have to have reserve. The arguable question, and you can get 100 different opinions. How much is enough? Mm-hmm. And how much money should you take out of the economy, the local economy, and put in the bank and draw a minuscule return on that investment? And you stifle the local economy's ability to thrive when I believe you do that. And yet there are those that will argue that you need to have that money in reserves. So we'll continue to collect it.
Yeah. But then in turn, and I'm not judging the decision, but then in turn become the Kenai Peninsula Borough Savings and Loan to Homer and Kachemak City. Fine, that's determined that it's a good alternative. I don't think it ruffled too many feathers. But that begs the question, how on earth did we get that much in there? And at the same time then turn around and have to ratchet up taxes and fight against non-prepared foods tax holidays and so forth. It just seems to me massively excessive.
Yeah, I think that if you look at over the last 10 years that the borough has done a good job. I think the assemblies and the administrations have done a good job in general in controlling costs. Now there are those groups and there's the initiatives that are taking place, those folks that are going out and generating initiatives to force the hand and do some other things that perhaps might not happen. And I think a lot of it gets back to there are some savings that can be had similar to what we did with the Homer Baylor facility and contracting those services out. I supported that. I think there are other services within the borough where we can contract out, and certainly the marketplace would generate some savings and still provide the same level of services. But it becomes an emotional question for some. The heart thinkers, truly don't want to affect the lifestyles or have any impact on any individuals on a personal basis, and then you got the head thinkers that would argue differently.
Is Charlie a head thinker or a heart thinker? We'll find out when we return here on Radio Realty. You're listening to Radio Realty. I'm Christopher Story, your host for great adventures in real estate. Along with me in studio is Assemblyman Charley Pierce. Your Mermaid Real Estate Trivia Contest is out there. I want you to enter to win right now. Text me 299-7653, 299-7653. Enter to win. The 73% right now are answering the Gallup poll that now is a good time to buy a home. That compares to the percentage in 2007. How? In 2007, 52% of you, 58% of you, or 53% of you thought it was a good time to buy. So that's year over year. What's happened? I'll tell you, we've improved dramatically. So, Charlie, we're talking about heart thinking and head thinking. As a politician, you make a decision that somebody doesn't like. You go into the grocery store and you see them. You know that maybe a decision or a side of a ordinance or law you've been on maybe cost them a job, or at least in their eyes cost them a job. How do you deal with that? How do you cope with that?
Well, I've always been a person that was willing to respectfully agree to disagree, and I listen to my constituents, and I believe I voice their word. I try to bring their word to the table. I think that I side well and agree in most cases with my constituents, so I don't have a lot of dissenters out there that challenge me in the positions or the way that I vote.
And that's Nikiski, correct? You're
no,
primarily...
I'm Sterling and Funny River.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
And so I use that as a gauge as well, and I commonly get a number of compliments after a meeting in regards to the comments that I've made. If I greet you in the store and we agree to disagree, I'm going to always do it respectfully. I'm going to respect your opinion. I'm not going to personalize it. That's one thing I'm good at. Is I don't think I carry a suitcase full of bad feelings. I guess I can shake it off pretty quick and recognize I respect the process. There's a majority vote, and you kind of got to go with that. You do. I haven't. When you look at my tenure on the assembly, I tend to probably vote more than yes, and I haven't won a lot of battles, but I think that I've brought a perspective to the table to
slow them down a little. Slow them down a little.
Well, think about it. Think about what we're doing. I think that if you just look at the numbers. There's a number of folks out there that bring a lot of legislation to the table, and if you look at my time on the Assembly, I brought very little. I did that purposely. I don't think that we need a whole lot of codes in the books. And a second-class borough, it doesn't need to be real complicated. I'm not in favor of zoning. I'm not in favor of animal control, and I'm not in favor of a larger government. And as I stated, I think there's a way to solve the anadromous stream issues and protecting the habitat at the same time. Preventing the government from taking my rights to provide some improvement on my property.
Assemblyman Wolf brought up a great point, and that is to be proactive and provide incentives and get engaged, but not engaged with these onerous rules and regulations.
Well, I think that where we miss the mark, and we commonly do this in government, is we tend to not trust people first. And we pass legislation that's going to affect them. And rather than try to trust them and educate them, no one brought up any idea, well, we're going to educate them and let them know what they can do better along the waterways that they own to protect that habitat. And I would argue that the exception rather than the rule is that most people are going to go along with that training and that education. They would much rather do that than see the borough come in and take 50 feet of their property. And in the grand scheme of things, when I think about this 50 feet and protecting this habitat, if you really look at the problem, where the problem's occurring, this is a very, very, very small fix. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't protect the habitat. We need to. We need to protect it. But when you look at what's going on in our communities, where the people are migrating to and where the tourism occurs, and what we do to advertise ourselves, we bring a lot of this upon ourselves. And rather than regulate those activities that are truly having an impact on it, because there's an economic outfall or some effect to the B&Bs and the guides and those folks that are making a living on the rivers and the tributaries that lead into them, it misses the mark, and it really does nothing. Protecting this stream upriver it certainly has to be done, but you haven't even proven that it's in dire strait or suffering.
Exactly. And at the hands of who?
That's correct.
And this is one thing that I brought up, and I'm not suggesting you have the answer to this, but I thought it was ironic that at the same time we're debating this issue, retinol was released into certain lakes to eradicate the pike. And then if it were to show up, retinol, this chemical, this known toxin, was to show up in the Kenai River, don't worry, there's another chemical we can release to neutralize it. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. This is our federal government, our state government, I think that was Fish and Game Project, doing this. And then could you imagine a private property owner, I'm going to dump a bunch of chemicals in this, trust me, I know what I'm doing. I mean, we got to balance this somehow.
It's interesting how some things are permitted and others are not.
Right.
And we run around creating legislation to protect ourselves from ourselves. And we're doing this without even proving that we have a problem.
Right.
I mean, we've got a problem, and we're unwilling to look at where the problem's at. When will they regulate the number of guides that are sitting at Beaver Loop during the first run of Kings? When will they stop letting them fish in the first run when you get 3,000 return or 4,000 return? It used to be 10, 12, 14,000 fish. You used to catch 60 and 70-pound kings all day long in the river. Today, you're lucky if you catch one of those larger fish. And you look at the agencies that are there using the science to protect those very things that we overlove, and you have to question the education and the decisions they're making based on the science.
Right.
But we want to go and we want to prevent you from cutting a tree within 50 feet of this waterway because you might just degrade some of the habitat.
Yeah.
Come on. You know what? I don't want you in my backyard. I'll say it again. You don't belong there. You haven't proven the rights or the reasoning to be there.
And on that, we'll say goodbye for the moment. We'll take a break and be back with more here on Radio Realty. You're listening to Radio Realty. I'm Christopher Story, your host for Great Adventures in Real Estate. Mr. Charley Pierce, Assemblyman Charley Pierce, was our guest today. You can listen back to our interview and conversation, radiorealty.us later today. Charlie had to buzz out, but he did want me to let you know, those of you in the Homer area, there's a code compliance meeting for the gas line connectivity, I think, for installers from 1 to 3 tomorrow at the Bedarka, the Best Western Bedarka. So 1 to 3 o'clock tomorrow if you're interested in knowing more about the installation of the gas line plumbing codes. Great program. Mermaid Cafe Real Estate Trivia Contest. I'll reiterate the question on the other side. We'll have Rhonda Johnson with our mortgage moment. And I promise you, we'll get into the Backyard Millionaire Plan. And also there'll be a special guest, James Price. Will you get a $50,000 exemption on your primary residence? Stick around. You're listening to Radio Realty. I'm Christopher Story, along with David Webb, who is your engineer and broadcast producer back up at the mothership of KPEN. I'm broadcasting live from the corner of West Hill and the Sterling Highway, the corner of All Things Possible and Prosperity Way. You really can make $1 million in your own backyard. I'll never forget the first time that I decided I wanted to own homes. I wanted to own rental homes, and I wanted to be a property owner. Was, I guess it was around 1994. I met a man, and he was an older man. He was about 80-something at the time, and he had started at age 55. How did he get started at age 55 and end up a multimillionaire at age 80-something when I met him? That is the Backyard Millionaire Plan I'll be sharing with you later in the program. The Mermaid Cafe Real Estate Trivia Contest is on. You can enter to win. It's not too late. Even you who have texted me wondering if you've missed a question, maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but here's your opportunity to enter now. In a Gallup poll today, 73% of you have said it's a good time to buy a home. That compares to what percentage in 2007? Was it A, 52% back then, B, 58% of you, or C, 53%? We're answering the question, yes, it's a good time to buy a home right now. Text me now, 299-7653, 299-7653. Also, just a quick reminder from one of our other producers, we will have our Healthy Living segment brought to you by Holistic Chicks Health Coaching. Without further ado, please help me welcome Rhonda J. Johnson for our delayed but not forgotten mortgage moment. Hi, Rhonda.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
You tell me interest rates today compared to 2007, since we're doing a little contrast here between today and 2007. Hit me with today's rate and 2007's rate.
Well, you know, Chris, today actually for the 30-year fixed rate, we're looking at about 4.625 with an APR of 4.897. But in 2007, we were closer to that 7% mark. So I just did a really quick little calculation here just to compare what that means in buying power. And let's say like you wanted to have a $1,200 monthly payment, including your taxes and insurance. So in 2006 or 7, you could only buy about a $160,000 house. But right now, today in 2013, you could buy about a $210,000 house.
Nice.
So that's about a $50,000 buying power advantage of buying today versus where we were just 6 or 7 years ago.
Isn't that interesting? And then go back to 1980 when the interest rate was 16.33% in the Carter era economy. And you go, wow, people were still buying, people were still leveraging other people's monies and finding ways to become wealthy through real estate. Even if all you want to do is buy a home, there's a way to do it. So 4.625, I guess, is the answer we're looking for today's interest rate. Let me ask you a couple of questions from an investor's standpoint. Non-owner occupied investor rate. How does that, let's say I'm going to buy a home that I will not live in, I will rent it out. I'm going to put what, 25% down?
Right. Depending on whether you're buying a single family or a multifamily, will have a little bit of a difference on the down payment.
And what about the interest rate? Am I going to get the same favorable 30-year term with that interest rate of 4.625 on a non-owner occupied investment?
Well, you may, Chris, but here's the thing, is that because investment properties are a riskier loan for a lender, then they're going to get paid for that higher risk. One of the ways that they might get paid for that is either to charge you a higher interest rate or to charge you discount points to get the same interest rate as an owner-occupant. So you'll have your choice. And when we do the math, when I'm working with investors, then we'll calculate out the differences, how long you plan on owning it, does it make more sense to pay that discount points up front or take the higher rate over the life of the loan. So yeah, absolutely, they could get the same interest rate, you just pay a little bit more for it up front.
Now, let's just say that you follow one of the tenets of our Millionaire Plan here on Radio Realty, and you buy a home today with, let's just call it a zero-down veterans loan or maybe a zero-down rural development loan, and you live in it for a period of time, and then you move out. Let's just say you move out in 2 years and then begin to rent it out, and you move into a home that will then become your primary residence. Is that okay, or is that under the guidelines of those two zero-down programs, is that doable?
It is doable, Chris. So when you go to closing, you're going to sign a document that says it's your intent to occupy this property as your primary residence. It doesn't give a specific length of time that you need to occupy it, but life happens, things change. And so the general rule of thumb is that if you occupy it for at least 1 year, then you've fulfilled your intent to occupy that property.
Okay, so that's what I just encourage you to do. Look around 4 homes in your neighborhood. 4 people own them, maybe more. You could own them. This to me is just so logical, especially if you're willing to do what one of my other realtor mentors used to tell me, is that you should work and your home should work for you. A lot of gurus today, Rhonda, say, oh, your home you shouldn't consider an investment. And I say, pooey on that. That's ridiculous. Your home is too an investment. You agree?
I agree, totally agree. It's your biggest investment.
Well, I mean, that's it. I mean, now, and in some cases, maybe you own a 10-unit apartment building or a 5 or 6-unit apartment building and so forth in addition to your home. But let me just do this real quick. In Anchorage, 10 years ago, your average home price would have been $233,000. All right, all circumstances are different. Maybe you bought one way above that or way below. It doesn't matter. We're talking about averages over 10 years. Fast forward 10 years, $336,000. Tell me that's not an investment. You had to live somewhere, right, Rhonda?
Exactly. And, you know, even if 10 years ago you were in those 7% interest rates, then you probably would have refinanced it by now.
Right.
And still had that equity growing and working for you.
It's $103,000 over 10 years. It's $10,000 a year, roughly, give or take. Not to mention your tax advantages over those years, not to mention that you've lived where you've wanted to live and done what you've wanted to do to your home, and then the ability to go in, Rhonda, and do a refi, maybe with some cash out, and buy another investment property.
Absolutely.
And speaking of which, the cash out refis are still available, right?
Absolutely, sure. Yeah. And you know, we're in a pretty healthy economy here on the Kenai Peninsula, so we've just never really seen this big crash that some of the rest of the country experienced, and everything is healthy and stable and steady. So Absolutely. If we're going to do something, I would say this is the time right now.
All right, I like it. Rhonda Johnson, I appreciate it. And I've told this story before. You probably get tired of hearing it, but it was Rhonda who helped me refinance out of 11.5% interest and take our payment from $1,500 a month, which seemed like a stranglehold at the time, down to $748 a month. And that was 12 years ago, Rhonda, and I've not forgotten it, and really still appreciate your taking time to come down and meet with Tiffany and I. You didn't know whether we were going to qualify or not, but you sat down, gave us the time and attention. We felt like your most important customer, and we've never forgotten that, and really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, Chris.
You can talk to Rhonda yourself. Remember, we made her tuna fish sandwiches. You don't have to. 226-8815 is her local Homer Anchor Point area number, or 714-4391, 714-4391 in the Central Peninsula. Anywhere in the world, RhondaJohnson.net. Thank you, Rhonda.
Thanks, Chris. Have a great day.
You too, and don't you go anywhere. We'll be back with more here on Radio Realty. You're listening to Radio Realty. I'm Christopher Story, your host for Great Adventures in Real Estate. We're discussing your backyard millionaire plan today. And I want to tell you a story. I won't take a lot of time on it. I promise that. And I do promise also we'll get to our Holistic Chicks Healthy Living moment. But first, please help me welcome someone who is not a stranger to getting involved, rolling up his sleeves, getting vocal, and acting local, and that is James Price. He's a co-sponsor of the Alaskans for Tax Relief, Property Tax Relief. James, I read your piece in the Homer Tribune today, and it appears that you're helping put together an initiative that would put on the ballot an opportunity for Peninsula voters to say, yes, we'd like to go from $20,000 exemption up to $50,000. Do I have that right?
Yes, you do. We want to raise the exemption from the current level of $20,000 to $50,000 for all people who own their own home here on the Kenai Peninsula.
So it's people who own their own home but reside in it as a principal residence, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so
they have to be a resident.
My concern, I expressed this to Assemblyman Pierce, who was on the program earlier, is that what's going to happen is the Assembly and the administration through the borough mayor is going to say, oh, okay, no problem. You're going to squeeze us on that. We'll just raise taxes on this. And to that you say?
Well, the property assessments go up every year. They're continuing to get more revenue. I'd say that they don't have to raise property taxes on the other end, but if they do, what will happen is that the residential property owners will gain the exemption, and the balance will be put on the balance of the property owners, which are non-residents and commercial properties. The borough needs revenue, and basically this tax break will be focused on residential property owners, and if they, if the borough chooses to keep the revenue rates high, at the level that they are, they probably would raise the basic meal rate, although it shouldn't be raised to a great extent, and it should be significant tax relief for the people who own their own home and live here on the Kenai Peninsula.
Is it fair to say that your intent, James, is rather than to increase millage or increase property taxes for investors and commercial people and maybe a senior citizen who now is snowbirding after many, many years of carving out an existence in this wild, rugged land, and all of a sudden is being not afforded the exemption at this point in time because they spend an extra day or two or month or 6 outside? Your real intent is not to increase taxes elsewhere, but to say to the borough, we'd like to restrict the access you have to the money of those that reside in their homes as primary residents, and likewise would like you to take a look at your bottom line and cut the budget.
Well, I'd certainly like, as an initiative co-sponsored, a person that's bringing this forward, I really don't have a say on how the borough assembly views this.
Right.
Although I will say that property assessments go up every year. And I believe that the budget that they currently have has plenty of revenue income, and I would hope that they would absorb this tax relief and just go, just move ahead without raising anyone else's taxes.
All right, good. That's what I wanted to hear. It may not be what happens, but I agree. I want to see the increase to 50,000, and then I would like to see. And I asked Assemblyman Pierce this, and I believe he agrees. We're holding $100 million of your money, your dollars. $100 million are held in bank accounts, off limits to you, just in case we need them. Now, that's good stewardship. Obviously, you don't go out and buy something or build a facility and not have means to upkeep and maintain and so forth. But at what point does it reach a tipping point to where you've got all the people's money, and so much so that then you decide, I'm going to loan some of it back to you? No. I think there's room to cut some fat here. That's what I'm getting at. James, I appreciate the initiative. Now, how can those of us in the lower southern peninsula get involved if we wanted to become a co-sponsor or get a booklet and start collecting signatures ourselves? Is there a way to do it without going to Soldotna?
Yes, there is. You can call the borough clerk's office, and the borough clerk will send initiative booklets to co-sponsors. All you have to do is call the borough clerk's office, and I'm looking for her phone number now. And I can't find it. Here it is.
Okay.
Call the borough clerk. Her phone number is 714-2160. She will just tell her how many books you want. There's 30 signatures per booklet, and she will mail them to any qualified person that wants to be a co-sponsor. She will also ask for your telephone number, which she will forward to me. I'll also give you my phone number. My number is 776-3481. But what I'll do is I will contact all the co-sponsors who want to help us down the peninsula, who have called the borough clerk and have had booklets received or sent to them, and I will come down and collect the booklets prior to the deadline. And our deadline is in around the 23rd or so of July, and I'm sorry I don't have that exact date.
I think it's the 24th. It says here the 24th.
Yes, the 24th.
Okay.
So what I'll do is around the 21st, I'll be calling everyone who's decided to help us, and I may call once or twice before just to make sure that we're all basically singing off the same hymn page,
Okay.
And I'll come down and pick the booklets up, and I can certainly use and would certainly appreciate any efforts. If we can get this on the ballot and collect the signatures before the 24th, then we will. The people will have an opportunity to vote on it in the 2013 election, and that will make the tax break effective for 2014. And if we fail, then it will be on the ballot for 2015. Because with the full 90-day period, I will get the signatures one way or the other.
One way or another. James Price, thank you for what you're doing in your group, and please keep us apprised of your progress.
Yes, sir, and thank you very much for the opportunity to get the word out and for your good program.
Absolutely, thank you. And don't you go anywhere. We'll be back with Holistic Chicks Healthy Living here on Radio Realty. Real Estate Trivia brought to you by Mermaid Cafe. In fact, right now, 73% are telling Gallup that now is a great time to buy a home. In 2007, 58%. 58% then, 73% now. Interest rate then, 7%. Interest rate now, 4.625, according to Rhonda Johnson with Alaska USA Mortgage Company. That's good. Right? I mean, increased. Now, as rates increase, and they will, don't be shocked if rates are at 5% before the end of the year. Don't be shocked. The story I'm about to tell you takes place during a time when interest rates were massively, massively higher. But first, as promised, here is your Healthy Living segment brought to you by Ashley Story Gregoire. Now, if you've noticed an increase in mosquitoes, you're not alone.
I'm sure you've heard that stores all over Alaska are running out of bug repellent due to this exceptionally buggy summer we've been having. Well, not to worry about that anymore, because TerraShield is a better alternative anyways. This incredible smelling blend of essential oils has no risk of side effects and is actually scientifically shown to repel insects more effectively than conventional insect repellent. All natural and free of any dangerous poisons, it is completely safe to use even on small children, which means moms, while coverage lasts about 6 hours, you can feel free to reapply as needed throughout the day. So today, I'd like to give the first 2 people to text me each a bottle of TerraShield. The number to text is 399-1596. Again, that's 399-1596 for your free bottle of TerraShield. I promise once you try it, you'll never want to be without it again. For more information on services I offer and for weekly healthy living tips, visit my site at holisticchickblog.com. I'm Ashley Redwire. Have a great day.
All right, nice. Now, I can actually attest to that product. We actually have a bottle. We keep it in the car. It doesn't sting the eyes or burn like you would expect DEET or what have you. And trust me, it's effective. You want to pick up a free bottle? Do what Ashley said to do. Text her right now, 399-1596. 399-1596. Good stuff. Now, Oscar worked in the shipyards for about 30 years in Washington State. He'd been in the military as a young man. When he got out, he married his high school sweetheart named Ollie. How sweet is that, Oscar and Ollie? They settled down in Tacoma. Oscar worked his way up from, just a ship hand up to foreman, and then eventually became superintendent. 20 years of hard labor in the yard. Now, he had a dream of being the boss, sticking around another 10 years and just basically working his way into the sunset, physically exhausted at that point. Oscar decided, you know what, I'm going to take a little bit of time, and I'm going to build my wife the house that she's always wanted. So he built a home, and as it turns out, he understood the tools fairly well from the shipyard. He proved to be a good home builder, and built his home, moved in, and it wasn't long after that an older woman that had some cash said, you know, Oscar, you built your wife a fine home. Would you build me a home as well? He penciled out a design literally on a napkin, came up with an agreement with her, gave notice the very next day to the shipyard and said, I'm not coming back. And he got into the construction business. And he told Tiffany and I, he said, I built that home and they haven't caught me since. He had a great sense of humor, and he did, he had an ability to stretch a nickel, if you know what I'm saying. But he became a multimillionaire in the 30 years that would span between 55 and 85. How did he do it? He did it one home at a time. But it took that first home. It took a risk. It took saying, yeah, I'm going to do this. By the time I met him, and Tiffany and I went to work for him, he had 1,600 apartment units. He had several restaurants, and he had a hotel chain. And he named it after himself. He called it the King Oscar. I like that. And so, basically, he would be brought in around the country to speak at Apartment Units Association meetings and things like this over in Vegas, wherever they'd have him, or wherever he would go, more to the point. So my question to you is, what are you waiting for? Maybe you don't want to build homes, but are you sitting on a dream? Are you sitting on something? And you're saying, well, when the time is right, or I've passed my prime. This today is your permission slip. You're excused. Stop waiting and start living. Live your life now. Flash forward 10 years in your mind, 20 years, 30 years, depending on your age. Where will you be, and what is it that you're waiting on? As Jim Rohn is so famous for saying, I just love Jim Rohn, he said, let death find me not sliding down an old mountain, but conquering a new one. What is your next mountain? What is your millionaire plan? What if you really did end up owning 4, 5, 10 homes in your town, in your borough, in your state, or around the world, around the country? The sky is truly the limit. It's up to you. Phil, you're going to lunch for free at the Mermaid Cafe. How's that for a transition? You're going to lunch for the today. Phil, you knew the correct answer. He said that 58% back in 2007. I wanted to make sure to award him that. But seriously, go out and live your dreams. Start something new. I'm so proud of my wife, Tiffany. She has started a new business. You know it. It's called Alaska Aloha. And I'm not going to give you her age, but let's just say she's younger than Oscar. Right now she's rolling her eyes. Oh, geesh. But start something today. Do what you want to do. Just make it happen for yourself. Dave Webb and I are here for you. Now remember, this is an equation. This is your millionaire equation. I'm going to give this to you today. Right now it's free. It's all yours. E plus R equals O. Write that down. E plus R equals O. The formula is event plus your response equals the outcome. E plus R. Now you can't control the events, but you can control the response and thus have control over the outcome. For all of us here at Radio Realty, I want to thank you for being part of the program. You can listen back to the show at radiorealty.us. For Dave Webb, I'm Chris Story. For all of us here at Radio Realty, you really can make $1 million in your own backyard. Go out there and have a great day.